Hello guys, so welcome to a follow-up video from our initial talk or practice on writing comments. And if we dial back to the beginning of this notebook, you'll see that the second thing we're going to talk about is style guide. Right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to document this and call this Python's style guide. Right, I'm going to use the markdown to make this a lot visible and readable. Right, let me see, let me make this a little bit. Yes, that's excellent. So what is a style guide? Now, a style guide is is a document that helps you understand good programming practices. They're like best practices written out by folks who are the major contributors to the Python programming language. The idea for having a style guide when writing code is to make it pretty easier for everyone to understand, to read and understand. Now, there is a practice in Python programming where people come around to contribute to the development of the language itself. And it's important that these rules are put out so that people can, synchronize when writing code and then, make it easy for whoever's going to use the code in future to understand codes written by different people from in and around the world, right? Now, for you to get the style guide, it has a site where you go to, a simple Google search, or it's already my URL. So if I just put pep8, so you see it's over here. So now, if you look at this, I'll be dropping this link in the description so you can check it out yourself. Now, basically, this style guide, and I'll probably read out a little bit of an excerpt from this. You see this part where Guido says, one of the key insights is that code is read much more often than it is written. The guidelines provided here are intended to improve the readability of code and make it consistent across the wide spectrum of Python code. So, it's about consistency, and whenever projects are put together, it is expected that people write code in a manner that is consistent and synchronizes with what other folks are doing from other part of the world. So if you come here, and which is why I would leave this link here, which is why I'll leave the link in the description, is for you to look at the various recommendations. Now, it's important to note that these are recommendations. You may follow them, you may choose not to follow them. Your code will run if you choose not to follow them. However, best practices are really, really important in the grand scheme of things in terms of readability and, and for people to understand well-written code. In fact, there's a principle of clean code, and which helps to make code writing, pretty nice, if I have to put it that way. So here is one that I'll talk about, which is indentation. Now, if you look at the code that is recommended to be correct, you can see when writing code, you're expected that it aligns with opening delimiters. So you see how code is written here. Now, if I pick this up here, and just so that we can look at our code area here. So we see, we put this here. You can see that if I run this, oh, sorry, that was not going to run because, well, this was created out here just so that we can understand this. But let me pick this again, because I think this is what makes this run. This is a function. So I put this function. Again, this function is also, you can see that extra levels of indentation are being, emphasized here. So once that becomes a thing, then we start to understand that. So right now you see our error has changed because var1 here, isn't defined. But that's not the issue here. The issue is how the code is being written. So if I go over here, for instance, and I look at, I look at the one said to be wrong, you can see, let's copy this, right? So we'll copy this over here. And so these are supposed to be the wrong ones. And these ones are supposed to be the ones that are the right ones, or the ones recommended to be right. Then, right, so. Right, so now you can see that here you look at the way foo is written, and you can see how they are indented properly. You can see when writing a function or creating a function, you can see how it's advised. Here's the function, here are the parameters, then of course the print statement inside of the block of codes. Then if you come over here, you can see this. Now you can see that the difference here is how this ones look. You can see over here there's an indentation here and ensures that it stops here. This one, there's an indentation, but it starts over here. Now again, it's not wrong, right? It's this is the code here would run, but it is expected as a best practice that arguments on first line, when not vertically aligned, when you're not using vertical alignment. So you see this. So it's expected that if you want to make a change to this, you try to bring it down like this. So, well, this now looks like this in itself. Now, again, same here. If you look at when you're writing the code, you can see that this guy, there's an indentation that works like pretty well for it, so that this guys over here sort of have a different level from where this is. So again, the whole idea of creating certain indentation is so that your code looks pretty understandable when a lot of people are writing it, or when you're sharing code across different platforms, or when you're contributing to a development of, say, Python itself. And so in such setups, people are expected to follow these rules. There are lots of them. If you again go back to the style guide, you can see that there are a bunch of things. You see all this being talked about. I'll advise you as you start up writing code to look at these things, as you write code, and ask yourself, is your code consistent with the general rule for style guides? And one very interesting thing about the PEP 8 document is how, you get to write code and you get to see what is deemed best practices and deemed not best practice. Again, there's this one, you see, when you are writing code, sometimes you're writing comments, and then it is expected that your comments, when you start to write comments and the comments starts getting too long, it's expected that you try to break the comments down so that it looks good, right? So so that the comment does not get so long that you start leaving your cell and then it just keeps going to the other end of the cell and someone cannot read it, right? So these are proper style guides. There's something I'm going to talk about in future, but not now, is if you look at over here, you see that in my Jupyter notebook I have some extensions. These extensions also make for practices for PEP 8, so they kind of prettify your code, but in essence they are trying to adapt to PEP 8 conventions. So yeah, I'll drop the PEP 8 style guide. Try and read it. Please read it, and then it will help in when you're writing code, because it's best for starting out, and when you're starting out it's best to follow best practices. And yeah, I think that would be the ideal way to end this video. In our next video, we're going to be talking about reading documentations, and that will be like, I think, the last part of what we'll be talking about in this introductory part for, ideas that should be shared before we start writing code, and before we go into writing code proper, right? And yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for being patient to the end of the video. If you like this video, please share with people who are learning, so that they get a sense of it. If you feel you want to pick up more information from this channel, like, subscribe and share, the regular talk and all. I'll see you in the next video.